Hi, this week we are talking about cross cultural awareness and how that is connected to leadership communication. So, the first question is, according to our readings from this week, how does cross cultural awareness and investment in diverse prospects contribute to effective leadership communication practices? And it's more common nowadays for people that are in other cultures to work for work, like for multiple cultures to be working together. Like they could communicate through like phone calls or Zoom, or even just we can have people from other countries be moved to the US, or even somebody from the US moving to a different country and culture. It's also important to realize that with culture, you need to also be aware of the layers that are involved with culture. Like, somebody from Mexico isn't going to be the same as exactly someone else from Mexico. Like, there's different layers to a person, and it doesn't just stem from exactly like where they are from. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to have their own interests and hobbies and different like favorite culture foods, some different views. They're just gonna be slightly different people, and so you don't want to like completely overgeneralize and like clump people together, come like completely and say that all of these group of people are gonna be like that, because that's not always true. And that's definitely an important thing to realize as a leader, that yeah, you're gonna have these differences in people from different cultures, but that doesn't mean that two people that you have in the office, both from Japan, are gonna be the exact same person, and you're gonna have to deal with them the exact same way. Like, they're gonna have their differences, and that's definitely important to think about and to do in leadership. The next question is, what is the relationship between culture, community, communication, and leadership development? And I said they're all closely related and tied back to one another, because community, we all of us in a like community of like work, or like even just where we live, there's going to be different cultures like within our communities that we need to be respectful of and be mindful of, and be able to be understanding and learn about their different practices and how they communicate, and how best to communicate back with them without causing like miscommunications and people getting upset and feeling hostile, and definitely just making like a negative environment is definitely what we're trying to avoid. Which is why it's important to work on your communication for for different cultures. So the last question that we have is, what strategies do our readings suggest for creating meaningful leadership development through intercultural communication skills and cross-cultural communication context? I'm going to kind of come back to the second question, but the strategies that Barrett includes would be to be open and respectful, which that is definitely important. Like, all cultures are important. There's no one culture that is better than another culture. Everybody has their differences, and like all cultures are unique, and they all need to be respected and not like belittled, and not like made fun of or mocked or anything. It's definitely not fair to like for someone else to feel like they are being cast aside because of their culture. Like, everybody's gonna have their differences, and we just need to be respectful and be open to understanding those differences. And then know the social customs. So there's like there could be different hand gestures in other cultures that can be insensitive that we may not realize, like because it's not insensitive in our culture. You wanna like not inadvertently like disrespect someone by like shaking their hand when that's not the thing done in their culture, or like you just want to be able to know how to behave properly and appropriately with that person from that culture. The third one would be learn as much about the culture, history, people, and even language as reasonably possible. So obviously you can't learn everything about a culture or history, but you want to try to learn what you can and what would be important. And I mean, I think it's always fun to try to learn new things about people and places and cultures. But obviously you can't know everything. And we can't like be just fluent in every single language, obviously. But it is important to kind of know the culture of somebody that you're like talking to or that you're going to be in a relationship like with, even business wise. The next one would be to obtain pointers and feedbacks from members of the culture. So if you have like friends that are part of that culture, or even like other work colleagues that you're close to, you can call them like and have them help you and like kind of coach you on how to interact with someone from that culture. The next one would be to be patient, be flexible, and value the time needed to develop relationships. Like, obviously, it's not just going to be a right off the bat, you're gonna be perfect, you're gonna make mistakes. So just remember to be patient, like with yourself and even the people that you're communicating with. So don't like rush people. And you gotta realize that like building a relationship takes time, especially when you kind of have that barrier of like conflicting cultures. Like you're not gonna be able to click, I feel like, right away as someone who shares the same culture as you and you kind of already know how to act with them. But with someone that has a different culture, you might have to take more time to build that relationship. And then the next one would be to keep a sense of humor, which I think is definitely important. It's important to be able to laugh at yourself and to like, and others will be able to appreciate that in you too. But like laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously, but also like be able to know that like that you don't mean any malicious like intent to somebody else. That like you were just genuinely being curious or just genuinely want to know. And so like if they're like, what, they're like, no, like I'm dumb, like I'm so sorry, like I'm just stupid, like, you know, put light on yourself and like joke about yourself, like not like being in the know about something, or you know, just yeah, it's definitely like would be good. It's good to keep a humor that way, get everybody laughing, and laughter is universal. If you can make someone laugh, you know, that's a universal thing that everybody can just laugh together. And then the last one would be to keep language simple and avoid jargon. Jargon. So all like languages have their own like sayings and slang, but you want to kind of stay like away from that. That way, like you don't confuse somebody that doesn't know what you're talking about if they're not like used to hearing that slang and that terminology. And then they're gonna be like, what the heck are they talking about? Because I mean, even in like the US, like there's people that call like soda pop, or like, and you know, might confuse someone being like, what do they talk about, pop? Like, you know, that kind of thing. Like they're not gonna exactly know what you're talking about right off the bat. So you just want to keep your words like simple and easy to understand, or even easy to interpret if there would like need to be an interpreter. But kind of going back to the second question, the culture, community, communication, and leadership development. all kind of are related, because to be a good leader, you obviously need to have good communication and be able to communicate with your community, which your community is going to have different like kind of cultures in it, and not everybody's going to be exactly the same. Like Barrett even mentions about how for the layers of culture section, he says about how, I think they say about how still few recognize that those who use email only differ in meaningful ways from those who use Twitter, as do those who prefer LinkedIn over Facebook. So it's more than just even somebody from like Mexico and Germany. Like there are more to it than just where somebody is from. It's also like how they talk, how they communicate, what's important to them, all those different aspects that you need to put into consideration when communicating and when developing your leadership to be able to be the most effective leader to these people of like different cultures and different backgrounds and just different, mindsets sometimes. Like he has like a national level, like according to one's country, a regional or ethnic and or religious and or linguistic like level, which like most nations are like have culturally different regions. Like the US, people from Pennsylvania are obviously going to be very different than someone in California. One's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast. Like we're obviously going to have our differences. And then like gender level, whether you're a woman or a male or in between. Generation level, like separates grandparents from parents and children, which I think it's so funny for generations too, because some people, like my family, have like I have a huge age gap in my siblings. So like I'm about to be 24. My oldest brother's about to turn 9. The next one after that's about to turn 6. And the one after that's about to turn 3. So they are like they've grown up completely with technology, whereas like I grew up seeing my parents use flip phones, and now obviously I have all this technology that we have now, but I didn't grow up with like everything that we have now, and they kind of more grew up in that era than I did. So it's even crazy sometimes like how siblings can differ so much depending on their age difference and whatnot. And then next, like a social class level, like usually relating to their occupation or profession. And then for those that are employed in organization or corporate level, like where you are in that organization. And definitely all of that relates back to like community. Like people in a community are going to have these different levels of culture, and everybody's going to be different, and people are going to be a different mix of those different cultural levels. And as a leader, you need to be able to navigate that and be able to effectively communicate and respectfully like lead these people to, make the goals that you want to happen for your organization. Which I think, yeah, like the different different skills that I mentioned of being open and respectful, knowing the social customs, learning about the culture, obtaining pointers and feedback, being patient and flexible, and keeping the language simple and avoiding jargon are all great ways to be better about cross-cultural awareness and being a more effective leader. Thank you.